Speaking of the Battle of Birds, Bobby, the Ravens this weekend, this Sunday after Thanksgiving, can kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Okay, so that's gonna
sounds very efficient.
It sounds very efficient. So let's talk about the 3 over top, and then we'll dive into each one. Number 1, you can just kill the Eagles by beating them. Right, you win. That's a good bird. That's a good stone to throw at that bird. Then you've got the MVP race, as many people in those super chats just said. Lamar is up there. Saquon is up there. One of them is going to make a statement. Then the third stone is the Saquon versus Derrick Henry battle. You can win all 3 of those things on Sunday, kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Let's dive in first with this MVP race. As you can see, after week, what are we heading into? Is this week 12?
This is week 13.
This is week 13. Heading into week 13, here are the 2024 NFL MVP odds. Number 1, woof, Josh Allen with the plus 150. Number 2, Lamar Jackson at plus 250. And then number 3, Saquon Barkley, who has been shooting up these boards and has overtaken Jared Goff at 700. Why Patrick Mahomes is on here? I know it's because he has a 10-1 record, but he's not going to win it. And then Justin Herbert, who just got taken down by the Ravens. So what is Lamar Jackson's case here? Well, so far, it's that he's beaten Josh Allen head-to-head, who's in the number 1 spot. He also has 27 passing touchdowns, first in the NFL. He has over 3,000 passing yards, first in the NFL. He has a 7.9 pass touchdown percentage, first in the NFL. He's got a plus 24 touchdown to interception differential, first in the NFL. He's got a 117.9 quarterback rating, first in the NFL. Then you go ahead, why not just add in his rushing stats? So his total yards, 3,652, first in the NFL. So that is his MV3 case. I think right now, Bobby, Josh Allen is given slightly better odds because the team has the better record, which I agree should have some weight in this conversation. It's why Joe Burrow isn't even mentioned here. Joe Burrow is like number 2 in a lot of these stats, but nobody cares who the best player is on a losing team. So right now, Josh Allen has the better record. And Saquon Barkley, he's on his way to try to create new history in terms of rushing yards. And that's what this Sunday will do. The Lamar Jackson won the MVP last year after he beat the San Francisco 49ers and went head-to-head to some of his biggest MVP rivals. He already beat Josh Allen. If he comes in and takes care of business on his side of the ball and Saquon Barkley does not, then I think that will catapult Lamar into first place. What do you think?
Sure. Absolutely. We all know that this thing is probably going to be decided next month. But guess what? Sunday's next month. It's December 1st. It's December 1st. So we all remember that it was decided in a lot of voters' minds, like the Emmanuel Achos of the world, who is one of the voters for NFL MVP on Christmas night last year. And that was in San Francisco, and it was a star-studded performance. It was a beatdown by the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. So I don't know if it's decided on Sunday, but to your point, there could absolutely be wiggle room created or runway created, whether it's in the betting odds or in the voters' minds, public opinion's minds coming off the 425 window. A lot of the country is going to be watching this one. And by the way, speaking of overtaking, that's exactly what Lamar did from Burrow in terms of the top 5 passing yards. You mentioned this was one of the categories that he leads the league in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And here are the specific numbers to go along with that stat. 3,053 passing yards. Geno Smith, 3,035. Burrow, 3,028. And then a drop-off into the late 2000s with C.J. Stroud and Kirk Cousins. So not only are they getting it done on the ground as a team, but he's getting it done through the air. And, of course, the beneficiaries, the guys that we've already mentioned. Rashad Bateman, who, by the way, on top of those statistics and that projected number of finishing with over 800 receiving yards, Sarah, He's got 5 touchdowns, including that moon ball and a fantastic mid-route adjustment and concentration from 40 yards on Monday night.
That was
5
beautiful.
big touchdowns. He and Mark Andrews' touchdowns have felt big, like game-changing, defining moments. And Mark has come on in recent weeks, of course. I think he's got 5 or 6 touchdowns in the last 5 or 6 weeks. And for Rashad to have those projections, for Zay to be potentially moving towards his first Pro Bowl nod, all that comes back to Lamar.
I will just point this out. Lamar hasn't had a bye week yet. So some of these raw stats,
yes,
he may fall once the Ravens finally do have their bye, which is after the Eagles, correct?
It's coming up next week.
Yeah, it's coming up. A lot of these guys have already had their byes. So that's gonna help them. So that just means that Lamar's got to continue to play big. So if he plays big against another MVP candidate, which he has done time and time again. It just happened last week with Justin Herbert. People were like, "Oh, he's creeping in." Early in this, it was Josh Allen. It was Jaden Daniels early in the season. It was, if you can believe it, Dak Prescott early in the season. Like, it's just MVP candidate. Everybody keeps trying to give somebody else a chance, and Lamar keeps saying, "Nah, I'm MV3," so he can do that. That's the first. That's the first bird he can kill with the stone. Now, here's the big thing. So I pulled in here Stephen A. Smith's NFL Power Rankings. Okay, this is pretty close to what I've seen everywhere. I mean, these top 5 are generally in there. And I've been listening to ESPN. I've listened to them all yesterday. I listened to them today. And one of the big debates is, wait a minute, is the Eagles now the best team in the NFC? And so it's this kind of battle between the Eagles and the Lions. So if the Eagles aren't number 2, or if the Eagles aren't number 1, then they're for sure number 2, as they are on Stephen A. Smith's list. And he's got both NFC teams above the top AFC teams. But remember, the list is fluid. Okay. So my point being is that here you've got another awesome stage where the Ravens can once again put a statement, not just on the MVP race, but saying, nah, the Eagles are surging, but we're still the top dog, and make a statement to who many believe are maybe the second best team, or easily in the top 5, and the Ravens can start putting in some separation.
Yeah, I think this is a fair list. Obviously, I'm sure some of you, based on what I'm seeing in the live chat, aren't forgetting Bills-Ravens on Sunday night. It's hard to forget that. I'm sure the Bills don't forget what happened. Mm-hmm. So to see them above the Ravens, obviously, maybe leads to some of you pausing. But at the same time, you got to take into the full body of work. And they added Amari Cooper, and they're playing great football. And right now, if the postseason were to begin, as we showed on that first graphics there, they would be the second overall seed behind Kansas City, who would have the bye and the top overall seed. In terms of the spread going into Sunday, the Ravens are 3-point favorites for this matchup against the Eagles, according to ESPN Bet. And as Jamison Hensley notes, Baltimore's been the favorite in its last 12 games, which is the longest current streak in the NFL. And I don't see that streak ending anytime soon. 3 points at home. It's a 4:25 kickoff at M&T Bank Stadium. And Sarah, we've mentioned it a couple times. Oh, man.
Here we go. Here's the third
1
bird.
and 2. Yeah. Bird number 3 in this efficiency. We're on this efficiency killing spree. Oh. But man, these two, Saquon, after a monster week 12, overtook Derrick Henry for rushing yards. And you see it up on the screen right now. Entering week 13, Saquon leads the way with 1,392. He's averaging over 6 yards a carry. Well, guess who's right there as well? The King, 6 flat per carry and 1,325 rushing yards. There's a big drop off after these top 2, leading you to believe that Sunday's a matchup and one of these guys is going to be the rushing king this year. Josh Jacobs, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Chuba Hubbard round out the top 5. But Sarah, this is a star-studded matchup, not just from the quarterback perspective, but certainly the running backs.
Certainly the running backs. This will be remember we played a clip a couple weeks ago These two, by the way, these two completely support one another. When Saquon had his big day, Henry tweets about it. Saquon in that interview I'm talking about with the Pivot podcast, he was saying he loves and hates what Derrick Henry's doing this season. He loves it because he's a 30-year-old back, still right there in the top of the league, doing his thing. And Saquon doesn't want a number put on him when he's that age, so he likes to see Derrick Henry define the odds. He also likes to see, he also wants an NFL resurgence for running backs, obviously, because these guys want to get paid. They want to do their thing. They want to be respected. But at the same time, Saquon was like, dang, bro, can you just stop? You already have rushing leader season crowns. Can I get one of those? Can I get one of those? So I genuinely like Saquon Barkley. Everything I've read about him, everything I've heard about him, he's a leader. He's a stand-up guy. He puts the team on his back. I like him. But this week, he's the enemy. And that means it's personal, okay? It's personal. I want so badly for both Lamar and Derrick to go off. I need this to happen in my life. I need it to happen. I need Lamar to make his statement as an MVP. And I need Derrick to make his statement that I'm 30, I'm older, but I'm still the king. And Bobby, the Baltimore Sun had this great article on these two today, and they got an interview with Jamal Lewis. Now, both these guys would like to hit the 2,000 rushing yard mark. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I mean, they would need one of those Jamal Lewis-like games where, like, it's almost 300 yards. And Saquon Barkley just had one of those with, I think, what was he, 252, something like that. It's gonna be tough. Only eight running backs in the history of the NFL has broken 2,000 yards. And so they asked Jamal Lewis about this, and he says, "You can't name me a back outside of these two guys that there's a defense out there saying, man, I just do not want any more of him. Please do not give him the ball." You got defenses complaining. You don't have those guys that are going to just beat up on the defense to the point where they just don't want no more. So he's saying Jamal Lewis is basically saying nobody can be in my club, but maybe these two can. Maybe these two can because they just beat people up the way I once did. And Bobby, these two, here's what's crazy about this. These two about to hit trying to hit the 2,000 mark, even though it'll be difficult. It's much harder to do in this day and age of football. Jamal Lewis's day, it's like it was built around the run. He just got so many carries every time. There's weeks where Derrick Henry only has 13, right? But look at these two guys. They're number 1 and 2, and then they're blowing away the competition with Josh Jacobs and others behind.
Oh, there's a nice gap for sure. And there's a nice gap for Philadelphia right now, who comes in winners of 7 in a row, Sarah. They're 9-2 atop the NFC East, with the Washington Commanders just behind them at 7-5. And statistically speaking, rankings-wise, these are the top 2 rushing attacks. I mean, it's no coincidence. We just talked about the two-headed monster on each side of this team in Saquon and in Derrick. And Philly's actually the top-ranked rushing offense coming into Week 13, averaging 193 and change on the ground per game. For the Ravens, 180.2. That makes them the second-ranked rushing offense, but they're the top total offense overall. Philadelphia is the third. Look at the balance that the Ravens have. They're the top-ranked total offense. They're the second-ranked rushing offense. And they're the third-ranked passing offense with over 246 and a half. And that's the exact number, 246 and a half passing yards per game. There's a drop-off with Philly's passing attack. They're the 25th ranked group. But again, it doesn't matter. They're winning games. They pass it for over 195 yards a game. In terms of points, they're the 7th. Ravens are scoring over 30 points per game. That's the second-ranked group league-wide. Statistically speaking, on offense, Sarah, this has a little bit of everything that you want. And for Philly, they have a 3-headed monster. And the one guy we haven't talked about, we haven't mentioned Jalen Hurts' name. We will now. but A.J. Brown is their top target,
Mhm.
and he's having himself a nice season. He's just south of Zay, though, in terms of receiving yards, 727. He's caught 39 footballs from Jalen. Zay's caught 57 from Lamar for 789 receiving yards. So between Saquon, Jalen, and AJ, their offense runs through that trio.
Absolutely does. I mean, the Ravens defense is going to have their hands full. I mean, you pointed out over here how close they are in offense, right? And then you look down at defense, and it's kind of close there too. The Ravens have the better rush defense at number 2. The Eagles are number 7.
Yep.
So they're both top 10 rush defenses, although there is kind of a big gap. The Ravens are giving up 20 yards per game less.
Yep.
And if the Super Chat commenters note is correct, that Saquon and the Eagles have been going up against a bunch of poor rush defenses leading into this game, well, that'll be a different story. And Bobby, you said it doesn't matter that the Eagles offense is more based on the rush and their pass offense is only 25 because they're winning. That's true. But when you're breaking down this upcoming matchup, it's a big deal. If the Ravens can make them one-dimensional, let's do that all day long. Let's do that all day long. And I know it's Saquon. It's not going to be easy. But, I prefer to play against a team, against the Ravens defense, that leans more into their run game than their passing game. And that could be, my famous last words if Saquon goes off. But with Lamar and Henry wanting to outplay him, obviously the defense has a big part of that. And you got to feel good having the number 2 rush defense to help you out.
Roquan and his availability certainly is a pressing issue for this team going into Sunday. And I would think, based on some tweets from the beat reporter community that had a bird's eye view to Roquan's pregame workout that reportedly went over 20 minutes on Monday night, kind of leads you to believe that he may have been close. John Harbaugh would not say as much in terms of how close he was or wasn't to playing on Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
But Sarah, if that is an indication and he can go, that's a key piece. I know that Malik Harrison obviously is coming off a career game, 13 tackles, right, flying around. He has his limitations. And with Roquan out there and the stability now, albeit a 2-game sample size on the back end from a safety standpoint, with Kyle and Ardarius being there and being more dependable and that reliability aspect being there for level 2, I think Roquan could have himself a tone-setting game if he can go.
Well, what's crazy about that, Bobby, is that now I don't know how often they can do this, but if the Eagles lean into this rushing attack, and why wouldn't they? I just read a quote from Jamal Lewis where people are like, I don't want any more of that. If Roquan can return and then he's got this thumper and Malik Harrison next to him, then these 2 linebackers aren't going to be like, I don't want any more. It's more like, you don't want any more of this duo. And obviously the Ravens will still have a committee approach there because having those 2 out there isn't going to be the greatest for coverage purposes. But in obvious rushing situations, having Roquan and Malik Harrison out there as 2 big boys in the middle, that would be helpful.
No kidding. We're going to dive into this deeper, by the way, on Friday at 12:30 Eastern during our lunch hour live stream with Dave Zangaro. He is a Philadelphia sports personality for NBC Sports Philadelphia. So looking forward to having him on, and I will be solo that day. So looking forward to having you get a little nice weekend going into Thanksgiving and Sunday's game, and with all the family and siblings that you have rolling around that house, which is awesome.
The deal. They're all waiting for me now. I can't do it till on Friday also. But again, thank you for having my back on that.